Hi, how are you? This is Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein. Nice to be back again. We're back in Temple Sinai. It was quite a doozy of a holiday season, and now it is over. We're still in Tishrei, but Simchas Torah was yesterday, and we are now back in the normal cycle of things. It is still quite busy at Temple Sinai here up in Middletown, New York, but very happy to be back and learning again, starting a new cycle of the Torah reading. So we will move on from the general topic we were learning before, which is tshuva, repentance, from the Bereishit Chochmah. And we'll be starting a new topic and a new study pattern for the year with the weekly Torah portion. We will be learning Chassidus on the Torah portion of the week. We will be studying a particular Chassidic Rebbe, and hopefully we'll keep up with the same one the whole entire year. A Chassidic Rebbe that I have started to become acquainted with and become attached to in some sort of way, and really started to enjoy to learn, is Rabbi Chaim Halberstam of Sanz, the Sanzer Rebbe. He wrote a book of his Torah novella or Chidushim called Divrei Chaim, the words of Chaim, and we will be learning the Divrei Chaim, the words of the drashot on Torah of Rabbi Chaim Halberstam for the rest of the year, hopefully, on each year of the Parsha, each week of the Parsha. And I'm so happy to do this. I originally became attracted to this Rebbe because of his stories of how an amazing a Rebbe he was, not just in terms of his Torah thoughts, but also in his actions, in terms of the tzedakah he did and taking care of poor people. I also became very interested in him, in particular in the Sanz dynasty, because of his relation to the Klausenberger Rebbe, Rabbi Yehudiel Halberstam, who just passed away in the 20th century. He wrote a beautiful collection of Sforim called Shefa Chaim, or gave these drashot, which were put into this book called Shefa Chaim, and also an amazing Hasidic Rebbe, and became very interested in this Hasidic dynasty. And a little bit about him, just biographically. He was born in 1793. He passed away in 1876. So a little bit of a later Hasidic Rebbe compared to some of the earlier Rebbeim. He was a major disciple, at least in Hasidut, from Rabbi Naftali Tzvi of Rashvitz, or the Zera Kodesh. And he was really a wonderful Rebbe. And now descending from the line of the Sanzer Rav, or is the modern Hasidic dynasties of Sanz Klausenberg, another dynasty of Sanz called Sanz Migrad, and also Babov. Also came from, all these dynasties came from the Sanzer Rav and his legacy. He also wrote not just a book of Torah novellas, Torah Chidushim on the Parsha, but also a book on halacha of Shailot and Chuvot, also called Divrei Chaim, questions and answers on halachic issues of his time. Let's jump right in. We're in Parshat Bereishit, and this is a little bit of a long teaching, but we'll try to learn it together. And the Divrei Chaim tends to be, sometimes can be a little bit complicated. He was really a Talmud Chacham in, really learned in Kabbalistic sources, in Talmudic sources, in halachic sources, in every single kind of area that you could possibly know in Judaism. He really knew it, and wasn't just a Rebbe, but really understood Torah in a deep way, and really was really very learned. So we're going to learn this today. So the verse that the Divrei Chaim is talking about, Reb Chaim is talking about, is in the verse, and they knew that they were naked. It's this Genesis 3:7. When Adam took from the apple and ate of the apple, and we know that once he did this, it says in the Torah that Adam and Chava knew that they were naked, that somehow they didn't know they were naked before, and they have to dress up in clothes, somehow put clothes on their body to not be naked anymore. This is obviously a famous verse having to do with the original sin, and it's one of the one of the most important parts in our Torah portion, even though in a very important Torah portion, it might be one of the more important verses. What actually happened to Adam when he ate of the apple? What did Adam become aware of? What was Adam's condition before eating the apple, and what was Adam's condition afterwards? These are all questions that we ask, and that are commonly asked. So one rabbi who obviously was thinking about this, and this question was very important to him, was the Rambam, Moses Maimonides, and he had a question on this verse. The Divrei Chaim pulls from the guide for the Perplexed, the More Nevuchim, in that the Rambam said, what kind of punishment is this? That in the beginning they were without knowledge, that they didn't know they were naked, and afterwards, after the sin, they came to the ability to have knowledge? How could this be their punishment? For having knowledge seems like a good thing, right? He wrote this in part 1, chapter 2 of the guide, and the Rambam asks a simple question. He says, Rambam knows that Rabbi Maimonides knows that knowledge is a good thing, right? Especially the Rambam really believes that knowledge and intelligence is what it's about. And really, he was a philosopher. He was someone who really believed in the goodness of intelligence. And how could this possibly be a punishment to gain more knowledge, to gain an understanding that they were naked or they didn't have clothes? How could this possibly be a punishment, right? This seems like an antithesis to the Rambam's theory of Judaism, and it's all about learning. It's all about philosophical inquiry. The mitzvah to know Hashem is to get to philosophically inquire as far as you can and take a leap of faith, finally, in having faith in Hashem. But the Rambam really saw all our tzaddikim, including Moshe Rabbeinu, as a philosopher. So this seems like a cardinal sin. This doesn't make sense to the Rambam. So the Divrei Chaim brings this up. He also brings up a Zohar in the same sentence as the Rambam, which is always funny to me, but he does this. And also, in truth, according to the words of the Holy Zohar, they were first, Adam and Chava, the Zohar basically says that first Adam and Chava were in some kind of beautiful clothing, and they became naked of it after the sin. Meaning, they would have been, somehow the Zohar seems to think that they were wearing some kind of clothes, and they lost that clothing afterwards to know that they were naked. That they somehow weren't standing really naked, they had some kind of clothes, and they lost that once they ate of the apple, which is kind of a backwards way of looking at things than normal, which they would walk around naked, and then all of a sudden they realized afterwards they have to clothe themselves. Right? So the Zohar always kind of reverses our way of thinking about things in general, as it does again today. So we're going to get really into this, right? This is the way the Hasidic Rebbe opens up the Drash, and it's obviously very important to always understand the question that he's asking here. But we're going to get deeply into this. So the Divrei Chaim is going to try to explain these questions. But according to the simple meaning, it is possible to say, and I put simple, if you have the text sheet, I put simple in quotations because simple is never simple, pshat is never pshat, right? This is actually really a deep understanding and far from the simple meaning. That in truth, in the Garden of Eden, in Gan Eden, the clothing is the actions of the mitzvot we do/did. So there's a general understanding here that in the Garden of Eden, we don't wear physical clothes. Even when we go to the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, supposedly after we pass away, that's kind of like heaven, Gan Eden, Garden of Eden. It's a world of completely spirituality, and we don't have to worry about our physical needs in that regard. And the clothing we do wear, the way we're adorned in Gan Eden, is the mitzvot we do in this world. So that's kind of like the gift we get in the spiritual world from the work we do here. In the physical world is the adornments and the clothing we wear. And the only thing that we carry with us to heaven, to Gan Eden, is the mitzvot we do in this world. The good actions, the holy actions we do in this world, the commandments of Hashem that we fulfill. It's a really beautiful concept, and the whole entire teaching kind of pivots around dealing with this concept of wearing kind of a spiritual clothing, the clothing or the aura that mitzvot create when we do them. So this is the idea it's working with. And of course, the Tzanzer Rebbe is looking back onto the Gan Eden that Adam was in and saying, yes, the same thing. If you're talking about clothes, you must be talking about the clothes, of course, that mitzvot bring, that doing a mitzvot somehow has a spiritual clothing that you wear. Let's get back into the text. That this is the essence and point of dwelling in the Garden of Eden, to benefit from spirituality, and one needs light clothing. The really hard word to translate here is levush dak, meaning like light, translucent, clear clothing. It's very hard to translate it, but some kind of light garment or clear garment one needs for this, to be dwelling in a spiritual world. And this is made by the mitzvot, right? The only way we can get this kind of garment that we need to be dwelling in the spiritual world is made by the mitzvot that we do. And we, Bnei Yisrael, have it as a received tradition that the mitzvot make some sort of spiritual cloak for the one who does them. That the holy strength that is in doing mitzvot creates this thin, clear cloak. This cloak is much talked about in the Holy Zohar, as well as the Tikkunim, i.e. about the idea of clothing created by the action of doing mitzvot and from thought as well as from goodwill. It's a load, right? But the Divrei Chaim again is bringing this tradition from that it's in many different sources, including the Zohar and the Tikkunim, which is other Zoharic material, and other Sifrei Kodesh as well, other holy books, that the mitzvot we do in this world creates some kind of spiritual garment for us, some kind of spiritual cloak that somehow guards us or somehow is upon us. And this is brought up a lot of the time. And he even hints at the idea that maybe also our thought and also our goodwill also creates some kind of clothing. But he doesn't really tell us how that's related to the actual doing of mitzvot. Obviously, doing mitzvot is separated from thought or goodwill. But we'll see how that interacts later on in the teaching. So let's keep going. And behold, Adam was also created for the purpose of doing mitzvot, right? For doing mitzvot, right? As every human being, every Jew's purpose is, at least through Torah lens, to do mitzvot, to serve Hashem, to be acquainted with God, to be in relationship with Hashem, right? So Adam, so too in the beginning, did not have a yetzer hara. So, according to the Divrei Chaim, according to the Tzanzer Rav, Adam did not have a yetzer hara, right? There was no sin in the world yet, so he didn't have a yetzer hara. He didn't have an evil inclination that was trying to push him, be a pituya, be a temptation to tempt him into sin, off the derech, off the path, right? To be separate from God, right? There was no temptation. Yet, according to all opinions, Adam had free will, and the positive and negative mitzvot were given to him according to his level. So, a lot of times we think that if you only can have free will if there's a yetzer hara, because if you only have a yetzer hatov, if you only have an idea to cling to God, what's the point of a free will? You don't have any other option, right? You have no other option. You have to choose good without a yetzer hara. But the Divrei Chaim seems to disagree. The Tzanzer seems to disagree. That actually, no, you can have a free will. You can have free will without a yetzer hara, and that was Adam. He was able to choose whether to do mitzvot or not, or whether to, just be a normal person, or to wear this what's called in the Torah chalukah d'Rabbanan, or this kind of cloak, or this cloak of the rabbis, or this cloak of mitzvot. And he had this choice. And it even says, the Zohar even says to us, and we have a tradition, that Adam kept many of the mitzvot. And where is this hinted at? The Torah, as it says in the Zohar, to serve, right? God commands God commands Adam to serve, serve in the garden. And this means that the pot in Genesis 2:15, if you'd like to look that up. And that serving means the positive mitzvot. Avot means the positive mitzvot. To do the positive mitzvot, meaning the do mitzvot, as in different mitzvot that are like that. And then to guard, it says you should serve and to guard in the garden. The guarding, that's in Genesis 2:15, is the negative mitzvot, the do not mitzvot. Do not kill, do not murder, right? Instead of a positive mitzvah, like you should love your God, your neighbor, you should love your neighbor as yourself, etc., etc. So let's keep going. And he takes this to another level. He says that Adam was actually doing some sort of positive and negative mitzvot, and it was bringing him to wear this cloak, this almost like clothing, this protection of mitzvot. A very, very interesting concept here. Very, very interesting concept. And let's end this section of the shiur right here, and I will put out another video this week. I like to keep things for 15-minute segments here, and we'll certainly finish it the next teaching, this Torah, that will come out this week. But we're ending here at the point where the Divrei Chaim is saying that Adam did mitzvot, and not only did Adam do mitzvot, but he was being clothed by these mitzvot, that somehow it was changing his reality of who he was. And he was a Baal HaBechira, meaning he had free will to be able to choose what mitzvot to choose if he was to do mitzvah or not. And by doing mitzvot, he really had this spiritual clothing, spiritual aura about him that was very amazing in that regard. So we're going to keep going on and see where he goes after this in a second. Just join us in our next video here. All right, see you next video.